Commit to lifelong learning. Purpose in growth. Emotional intelligence is something that can take you very far in life. Invest in your health. We cannot be people who claim to be believers in God, strong spiritually, but we are falling apart in terms of health. Financial excellence is not about you managing billions. A growth plan for yourself. We go to interviews and we are asked, what is your 5-year plan? Your 10-year plan? They're lies. Your life does not have to be a life lived and yet a reflection of regret. There is a need for the effectiveness of the gospel that we preach, that we must be people who are balanced. Following change, growth must follow. Cultivating a growth mindset is what we are talking about. If you consider your life, say you are standing at a crossroad and you have on one side a life of comfort and safety. On the other, you have a life of risks and ultimate success to the highest potential that you can reach. Which direction will you go? For many of us, we have taken the path to safety and to comfort. Very few travel the road of risks and potential to the highest level that they can reach. In today's session, we are going to talk about cultivating the growth mindset. Imagine yourself coming to the end of your life, standing before God, and He gives you a view of the picture and the recording of what your life could possibly have become. And as you review your life, you see how many dreams you did not pursue, how many visions you did not look into, and whatever passion you've got and talents and skills that you've got, how many of those you did not develop to the highest level that you can reach. How then would we feel for the wasted opportunities that we have come across and that we never maximized? As we live the life that we live today, I am here to give you an encouragement that your life does not have to turn out that way, to be a life lived and yet a reflection of regret. We can cultivate a mindset of growth that is of a person who grows from one best to another, which means that the best that we've been from yesterday is not good enough today, and the best that we are today must be better than our best from yesterday. But that which is our best today is not our best for tomorrow, and yet tomorrow the best is yet to be seen. That is the growth mindset. Continuous growth that is forever looking to the better me, the better person, and the better opportunities that we face and that we go towards. Now, for many people, we find that in investment of personal growth and the growth mindset, it would always be something that is addressed in isolation from either spiritual things, or growth mindset spiritual in isolation from effective growth in terms of our careers and personal development. There is a need for the effectiveness of the gospel that we preach, that we must be people who are balanced in the manner we live and the growth that we show and the excellency in which we do things. We cannot be Christians who are spiritual but cannot do anything else but to pray. Those who pray only will never be able to preach an effective gospel to people. And I want to appeal to Christians. We live in South Africa, and South Africa is just about almost 90% Christian. Almost 90% Christian. But if you then consider the investment into personal growth, we put in so much effort in terms of our growth, career-wise, personally, and all other aspects. But the things that are most important to sustain our growth, we do not put as much effort in. It is normal in our time to have a whole graduate, honors level, master's level, PhD, but they do not have a proper Bible. And if they do not even have a single commentary. How do you, at an academic level, know that I need to look at different authors in order for me to understand and appreciate the value of things, and then you do not invest the same mentality when you look into your spiritual life and you expect it to be the same? You can possibly have, normally in our time, a person who is an academic, but they struggle to read and explain one book of the Bible. But this person has written a whole thesis. It is only because our priorities of personal growth is diverted to only career and personal growth, but not crediting as much value as we do to spiritual things as we need to. If you are starting to feel guilty and there's an emotional hook on what I've just shared, good. Now, here's the hope. Your story does not have to remain that way. God calls us to a life, not only a life of growth, but a life of transformation, radical growth, a life of, not a life of smooth transitions, but a life of transformation, a life of radical change, a life of intentional and deliberate growth. We learn that in the life that we live, we must be intentional. Once we have planned and thought about things, made resolutions, the time to plan, once it has passed, it has passed. The time to think, once it has passed, it has passed. We must act according to the desires of what we believe in and what we have committed ourselves to. So let's try and see how cultivating a growth mindset can help you to transform not only your career, but your life in its entirety. Foundations of personal growth. Commit to lifelong learning. Growth does not end. Continuous growth. Kaizen, growth principle. Continuous growth. Unending learning. We remain a student, never coming to a point that we cannot learn and take lessons from others. I've watched how people grow to a point where it becomes difficult for them to take lessons from people who are newer in their career, younger in terms of age, or of different character and personality and culture, or whatever it may be. But learning must be continuous, and you must not have any boundaries for growth. Your principles and values are the only thing that guides you in terms of what you absorb and accept in terms of your personal growth. Number 2, purpose in growth. We must understand that as we grow, we must be driven with purpose. We must be driven with understanding that there is God who makes an investment into our lives, who has created us with a purpose. Not a single life is a mistake in the eyes of God. We may be unwanted children, some of us, by either our father or mothers or both, but with God, we are definitely needed and wanted, and not even just, but with a purpose. God has a purpose for each and every one of our lives, even the smallest of the houses that are in this world. But God has a purpose for each of us. For anybody who is willing to place their lives in the hands of God, there is greatness to be seen that can come out of your life. Lastly, under the foundations of personal growth, we must be people who are focused on building character and integrity. We must be people who understand that building a name for ourselves is the only long-lasting investment that we can have as our defense for now and for the future. We have to understand that if we do not have the understanding of these foundations, there is no sustainable growth for us. Personal growth must be based on lifelong learning, it must be driven by purpose, and it must be building a good name behind the purpose that we are living for. A life lived without purpose finds no meaning and will dare to even take risks on things that can destroy that which they've built over many years. Some areas of personal growth that are important for us to note. Number 1, I dare to start with spiritual growth. Matthew 6:33 says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." What things? Everything else that you need will be added unto you. But for you, you must seek God first. There are many who dared to try and seek other things until when they got all of them, they could not live with themselves. For without God, there is no satisfaction. Seek God, and all other things shall be added to your growth. Your spiritual growth must take first priority. You must have time for spiritual growth on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. You must have time. It is so easy for many of us to give up time either for prayer, reading the Bible, going to church, doing spiritual things, community service, whatever it may be, on the basis that we are driving our careers, we are driving our education and personal development. We are driving all other things. Priorities are twisted. Focus and prioritize your spiritual growth. Number 2, emotional intelligence. James 1 verse 19 says that you must be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Yay, a tough one for many of us. Emotional intelligence is something that can take you very far in life. Some even argue way more than your IQ level and adaptability can do. It is important that as we live our lives, we are people who are emotionally intelligent, able to understand the language that is spoken by the body of a person, the language that is spoken by the way that people communicate beyond what they are saying. Do you understand and hear what they intend to communicate to you? Emotional intelligence means that we are able to reason beyond how we feel. We are able to make decisions beyond how what people are saying to us makes us feel. There are many of us who, when spoken to and addressed, they would be like, you. No one speaks to me this way. Hey, listen, calm down, listen to what a person is saying and address them so that when that is out of the way, you can then come back and address the manner in which they do things. It's important that when we are emotional, we must be aware that we can be overtaken by the facts that are placed before us. Sometimes we do not accept the truth that is shared with us purely because of where it comes from. Some people on the subject, perhaps, of different cultures, different races, and from our own experiences that emotionally become something that can be triggering on certain subjects depending on who it is coming from. I mean, it's important that most of the time we are people who are honest with ourselves, be able to put our emotions aside and listen to another person regardless of their background, culture, race, and even whether they are qualified to speak or not to speak. We can then address the appropriateness of them speaking and the manner in which they say or do things. But we must be able to put our emotions aside in dealing with matters in life. Number 3, personal growth. It is important that we have self-awareness. Self-awareness means that we must understand ourselves personally in terms of personality. We must understand ourselves in terms of how we think and the capacity of our ability to manage our emotions. We must be self-aware. If we understand our personality, then we understand what our weaknesses are. In terms of personality and temperament growth, we have a few aspects that are key for each of us to know about ourselves. For instance, you must know whether you are an introvert or extrovert. Without a doubt, you must be able to promptly answer that. You must know whether you are a logical thinker or your feelings matter when you make decisions. You must be able to give that answer immediately. Self-awareness balances you because then it makes you aware that when it comes the time to make decisions, if I know that I'm an emotional person, then I become aware and I manage my emotions in order for me to make the proper logical decisions that I need to make. If I'm an extroverted person, then I must become aware that I listen more than I speak when it comes to conversations and engagements that I'm having with people. If I'm not aware of myself, I will continue to speak to myself and think that people have heard me. I will continue to address people thinking that we are moving together, when in actual fact, people are just tired because you are not aware of yourself. It is also important that we are aware of our shortcomings. Sometimes our lack of self-awareness drives people away, especially in positions of leadership. When we are not aware of ourselves, it drives people away because then no one can tell us anything. And therefore, self-awareness is key and important for our personal growth. Professional excellence. Whatever your hand finds, do it with all of your might, with all of your strength. For in the grave where you are going, there is no work. That is found in Ecclesiastes chapter 9. Whatever you do, do it with everything in you that you can get. For where you are going, we are all going to die and there's nothing more that we can do from the grave. We must be able to grab each opportunity and make the most of it. Physical well-being. Your health matters. Invest in your health as much as you do in your education, as much as you do in your career, as much as you do in spiritual matters. Invest in your health. You get Christians that will go to any prayer meeting, but they don't want to run. They don't want to lift anything. They don't want to exercise. Listen, the same Bible says, I desire that you be in health as much as you are strong spiritually. The same Bible says your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. The same Bible says if you eat or drink, do it for the glory of God. You can't be a prayer warrior, but you're not concerned about your body and how you look. I know. Many of us, we are so given to, this is how we are at home. No. The way you are at home is that you don't exercise. You don't eat right. And many of us, there are obviously gene adaptations that are difficult depending on how we are shaped as many people. There are so many people who are selling on social media that we must embrace ourselves the way that we are. Oh no, we ought to fight with the death date that is coming, and it is surely coming our way. We must put up the best fight to delay it as much as we can. Do the best that we can to drink as much water as possible and avoid sugar. Do the best that we can to walk and exercise and run, ride a bicycle. Do activities that will be healthy for your body. Go hiking, go do boat rowing, do something that keeps activity. We live a life of comfort where we are forever sitting. Nothing encourages us to walk, nothing encourages us to do anything. We cannot be people who claim to be believers in God, strong spiritually, but we are falling apart in terms of health. Some prayers and fasting that we are having are so unnecessary. We ought to be told to fix our health habits, many of us, instead of the prayer session and fasting that we are doing. Go change your diet, stick to water, fast from time to time. It will help you. If you know that you must try and look into these things at the beginning of each year and you make resolutions towards dieting and all of that, and you can't do it for the rest of your life, why should we then take you seriously? Because clearly you know that these things ought to be done. Your physical health matters. Lastly, financial excellence. Be excellent in managing your small salary. Financial excellence is not about you managing billions, your small salary. Jim Rohn says, if you don't know where your money goes, but you want to be big, you are praying for God to bless you and to give you great opportunities to manage big businesses, to manage a bigger salary than you are managing, but you don't know where the small one you are getting is going. How can God trust us with greater things if we are unable to manage the small opportunities and funds that we have at the moment? May God help us to manage small things as great minds, that we can be successful. From great, we will move to great. No matter how small what you have may seem, you can grow from that. Many people have got untold stories that we do not know about, that have grown from the little they had, and today they have plenty to show. Small beginnings are not to be undermined. Be faithful in small things, and God will bless the works of your hand. Practical steps for a growth mindset. Number 1, develop a growth plan. A growth plan for yourself. We go to interviews and we're asked, what is your 5-year plan? Your 10-year plan? The lies that we tell. Listen, develop an honest growth plan for yourself, and it must include spiritually, professionally, career-wise, personally, and in any other aspects that you may deem to be important to you that requires a specific focus. A plan for your growth is important. Smart plans, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-specific in terms of your growth plans. Number 2, have somebody to share your burdens with, to keep you accountable. In other words, this can be a mentor, this can be an associate in business, this can be an associate in career, this can be a friend that you have aligned values with, and you are happy to share your struggles together with interest on each other's personal growth. Listen, stop this thing of thinking that Facebook is your place of accountability. Instagram is your place of accountability. TikTok, YouTube is your place of accountability. Many of us, we fail to be accountable to people around us at a personal level, and then want to come here and say, oh, my personal testimony. Listen, people are still crying about you. Go and be accountable there. We don't have to, for showing growth, to come to public platforms and share our dreams and vulnerabilities with people who do not have any interest in our personal growth. It's not necessary. When you share your experiences, share them responsibly. You don't have to be drastic, you don't have to be ridiculous, you don't have to be dramatic in sharing your personal experiences. Be responsible in sharing your personal experiences, because many of the people you are speaking to, they have no interest to your personal growth. Therefore, that which you have shared as your dark moments and your struggles, and if you share them irresponsibly, it exposes you to vulnerabilities, to people who have no interest in your growth. In fact, they may even use that against you in future. So be responsible in keeping yourself accountable. And social media is not a place of accountability. Have somebody close to you, a mentor, a friend, a colleague, a business partner, an associate that you can share your vulnerabilities with. Listen, here's a story of Joseph. Joseph was a dreamer. He had dreams that he shared, guess with who? With his brothers. Guess what happened? They hated him for those dreams that he shared with them. Careful who you share your struggles, your vulnerabilities, and your dreams with. Share intimate things with people that matter to you. By the time you come out on a public platform, ensure that you have addressed any possible comeback from that. You cannot be irresponsible about your personal growth, for these are intimate struggles that you are dealing with, and you need to be sure that you've overcome them before you make yourself unnecessarily vulnerable to kill your influence before people. So what are we saying here? In terms of cultivating a growth mindset, spiritual matters must be of priority. Your career is important. Your personal, individual growth, cutting across spiritual and career growth, is important. Your social interaction and understanding and growth is important. Prioritize things accordingly. Plan for your life. Have clear goals that are smart and achievable. You must know that God has a purpose for your life. God commits to transforming your life, and it is important that you ensure that your growth is purpose-driven. And trust that in God's hands, we are not to give in to a life of mediocrity. There are greater heights for us to be reached, and God can bless the hands of the one who is committed to growth spiritually and in all other aspects. May God help us to cultivate a growth mindset that gives us a balanced life.